What up, Mikey Scrooge? Good friend Michael here with another edition of Sports Talk. We are going to recap the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 rounds. We will do a preview of the Final Four as well. So I'll offer my prediction of who's going to be in the national championship game, but I will not do a preview of the game because obviously we don't know if that's going to be that matchup or not heading into this weekend's games. So, without further ado, let's get started. So if you thought the tournament was done being crazy heading into the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, you were pretty much wrong. The madness absolutely continued. And just to say, this has been one of the most crazy years, bracket-wise, I've seen in quite a long time. Just picking the teams to win, in each region seemed very tough. Although the region that Kansas came out of was one of the easiest regions almost to pick from. It almost went chalk, I would say, pretty much, except for Syracuse defeating Michigan State. And in the region right above them in the East, the region with Villanova, pretty much went chalk, besides Marshall really winning that game in that region. The region Michigan came from out of was complete chaos, and the South region was absolutely chaos. And we should have known that was going to be chaos as soon as Virginia fell to a 16 seed in the first round. And then Cincinnati loses in the second round. Tennessee loses in the second round as well. So your top three seeds are gone. And Arizona lost in the first round. So all the top four seeds were gone before the first weekend. It looked like Kentucky was going to come out of this region, and we'll get to that in a minute. But then they eventually did not get out of that region at all. And of course, you know who got out of that region, obviously, but we'll talk about that here a little bit more in depth. So let's start with talking about Michigan's game against Texas A&M. They just hit the three ball like none other. I mean, they were falling. I mean, they could have probably shot from half court and they would have fell. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just messing around, but it seemed like it. It seemed like wherever they were shooting the three ball, they were going in. And not just, shooting the three very well, but they were forcing Texas A&M into a lot of turnovers in the first half as well. And that's how Michigan got out to a 52-28 lead. Three-pointers, and they were forcing Texas A&M to a lot of turnovers. And coming into this game, after watching Michigan play against Houston, having to win at the buzzer, falling behind early against Montana, I was thinking the way Texas A&M played, beating a good Providence team and then demolishing North Carolina, I was thinking, oh man, this is not good for Michigan. And then they proved me wrong right away, and thankfully they did. I mean, they won very easily, 99-72 in the victory for the Wolverines. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman, I should say, had 24 points to lead the Wolverines that game, and they just made Texas A&M look like they didn't even show up for the first half of that game. It was a complete beatdown from start to finish. All right, moving on to the rest of the games now. Florida State, the 9 seed, they ended up moving on to take on Michigan. I thought it was going to be Gonzaga. I thought the Zags, were pretty good, were pretty decent. I thought really once everything was going the way it was in this region where Xavier had lost, and actually I thought Gonzaga coming into the game, if they had to play Xavier, Gonzaga could have won, but maybe not. I mean, Florida State beat Xavier, and then Florida State, they were all over Gonzaga, 75-60. They led by 9 at halftime. Gonzaga had closed it, I believe, to within 4 in the second half before Florida State ended up pulling away for good in the end of that one. So that moved Florida State to the Elite 8 to take on Michigan, where I thought it was going to be Gonzaga, and, it was kind of 50-50 for me, thinking, would it be Gonzaga or would it be Michigan? And so I made, when I made two different brackets, I put Gonzaga in the Final Four in one and Michigan in the Final Four in the other. We all know how that one turned out, putting Michigan in the Final Four. The team that was still the story, Sister Jean, Loyola of Chicago, they were able to move on, defeating Nevada 69-68. Early on in this game, it didn't look like this looked like the game where Loyola was going to lose. Nevada had come out in their previous two games. They fell behind very early. but they changed it up. Their coach let Nevada have a shoot around before the game started, and it helped them out. Nevada was able to build at least an 8-point lead early on, and it looked like Loyola was not going to be able to overcome this. Then all of a sudden Nevada got cold. Loyola took the lead going into halftime. They did build a bigger lead in the second half before Nevada made a little bit of a charge, and then Towns hit a 3 to make it a 4-point game with about 6 seconds to go. However, Nevada, makes a shot of their own. So, it comes down to the end again, but Loyola ends up holding on for the victory. So the Ramblers ramble on again. They moved to the Elite Eight. So it's just such a fantastic story, and we'll talk about that as we preview the Final Four about that story. And the other game on Thursday, Kansas State. I thought Kentucky was going to dominate this game. Just the way I saw Kansas State play against UMBC. And a lot of people were thinking the same thing. It's like, oh, Kentucky, they blew out Buffalo. Yes, they were a 13 seed. They were able to get by Davidson. Kansas State, they beat an 8 seed, and then all they did was beat a 16 seed, and they struggled in that one. But I would have given UMBC a chance to beat Kentucky the way Kansas State played against it. Kansas State was able to win 61-58. Kentucky. They had a chance to tie it at the end of regulation, but the 3 ended up hitting off the backboard and hit the rim and did not fall. So Kansas State was able to hold on for that victory. They moved on the Elite Eight. There were 2 9 seeds in the Elite Eight, which is absolutely insane that happened. So you ended up having Kansas State taking on Loyola Chicago in the Elite Eight. So the first time ever you had a 9 versus an 11 seed in the Elite Eight. All right, so moving on to Friday's games. These were the games that were more chalk than anything. The East region and the Midwest region, as I talked about, were more chalk regions, really, than the other two, where you had the South and the West, which were completely out of control, it seemed like. So Villanova was able to pull away. They defeated West Virginia 90-78. Villanova rained down a lot of threes in this game. West Virginia kept it close, but in the end they just could not pull it out. Kansas, they were running away from Clemson before Clemson made a comeback. They pulled it to within 4, but Clemson just fell short as Kansas ended up winning 80-76. The one game where you had a double-digit seed playing, you had Syracuse playing Duke. It was close late, but Duke was able to hold on, win 69-65 as they found a way to crack that Syracuse zone. In Texas Tech, they took down Purdue 78-65. The coach of Texas Tech, Chris Beard, by the way, faced Purdue 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament with his Arkansas Little Rock team. And they took down Purdue. Arkansas Little Rock was a 12 seed. Purdue was a 5. This time he has Texas Tech. And once again, Purdue gets taken down by Chris Beard and his squad. I think not having Isaac Haas, obviously, once he got injured in the first round game against Cal State Fullerton, really hurt Purdue inside. I just think with him in it, it would have been close. I don't know if it would have been if it would have made a 13-point difference up, but I just think Isaac Harms, or not. I don't think his name's Isaac, but Harms, the other big guy for Purdue. To me, it's like there were some passes he just didn't catch that went out of bounds, plays that he didn't make that I think Isaac Haas would have made, and I think that really hurt Purdue in the end in this one. I mean, they kept it closer. They kept it close. It was, but in the end, Texas Tech ended up running away with it. So let's go on to Saturday's games now. Michigan took on Florida State, and this was another one of those games where Michigan's offense could not get on a roll. Two good defensive teams coming into here, but boy, neither team could get on an offensive roll in this one. Florida State early looked pretty good. Michigan didn't look so good. And then Florida State in the second half, they didn't have it. Florida State only shot 25. I think they only shot like 25% from the floor in the game. They were held under 60 points. This is the lowest Florida State's ever scored in a tournament game. And Michigan was able to grind another win out. In the second half, Michigan was starting to pull away. Florida State would come back a little bit. And then with about 2 minutes to go, Michigan had pulled away to a 10-point lead. But then every time Xavier Simpson got the ball, Florida State was starting to foul him. And Xavier Simpson, their point guard, is only about a 50% free throw shooter. So it was a good move by Florida State to do this because Simpson could not. I mean, I think he only hit one out of his, 3 free throws he got to take because it was a 1-and-1 situation. He missed one. He made one. Then he missed another one. And Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman, a 75% free throw shooter, even missed one. Florida State was able to cut the gap to close it. They did have to foul Duncan Robinson at one point, and they were able to push the lead out to 4 that Michigan was when he made 2 free throws. And then with about 15 seconds left, Florida State comes down. They shoot a 3, they miss it, and Duncan Robinson gets the rebound. And then, with about 10 seconds left, and at this point, I mean, if you're down by 4, and there's been crazy things that have happened in the tournament before. Texas A&M 2 years ago was down 10 points with about 45 seconds left, and were able to come back, force overtime against Northern Iowa, and ended up winning that game in overtime. And then this year with Louisville and Virginia, although that was a crazy situation where Virginia was able to get a last shot with 9/10 of a second left and make a 3 to win the game over Louisville. I mean, you never know. With 4 points, crazy things can happen. And I think Florida State did not want to foul Duncan Robinson, being a 90% free throw shooter. And I mean, I can understand that, but with 10 seconds left, he's not gonna want to pass the ball. I mean, obviously, 90% free throw shooter, he's not going to want to pass the ball and give it up. He was able to dribble out of the situation. Florida State just said, okay, we're not going to foul. Leonard Hamilton, the coach of Florida State, did not give an indication like he wanted his players to foul or he did not want them to foul. It was like the players just kind of decided, well, this guy's 90% free throw shooter. He's probably going to make both. 10 seconds left. We're down 6. We probably don't stand a chance, but still, you never know at that point. And with him not wanting to foul, that ended the game, and Michigan ended up advancing in the Final Four. So that was pretty awesome to see. It was just strange to not see Florida State foul. And CBS sideline reporter Dana Jacobson asked after the game to Leonard Hamilton why he did not foul. It almost seemed like he was really confused about the question. Didn't really want to answer it, it seemed like, as well. He was kind of getting a little defensive. Now, he did apologize later on about the interview. He could have handled it a little bit better. I mean, because he said that Jacobson was just doing her job, trying to get answers to the questions and stuff. And she wasn't being, overbearing about it either. She just wanted, I mean, the guys in the studio were wondering why he didn't foul either. And so they were wondering, we were wondering why he did not foul. He just said the game was over at that point, and which was kind of shocking because, like I've said, I mean, strange things can happen. I mean, in basketball, this is the one sport where you can foul the other team, and they might not get points out of it, and you get to take it down and do something. In baseball, you can't foul a batter or hit a batter and say, okay, you can intentionally walk a batter to get to maybe someone who might hit into a double play or get a crucial out you need where the other guy was a better percentage of getting a hit. That's about the only strategy you can do. You can't commit a foul in football to help your team out. You can't commit a foul in hockey to help your team out. This is the only sport that you could commit a foul to help your team out, really, because they could miss free throws and you can still have a chance. But anyways, Michigan goes on to the Final Four, so I'm glad to see that. Now, the first game of the day was Loyola Chicago against Kansas State, and Loyola had won basically 3 games by a combined total of 4 points. They defeated Miami by 1 point, Tennessee by 2, and they might have defeated, I think it's 3 or 4 points they defeated all their opponents by. Well, they easily took care of Kansas State. They stormed out to a 12-point halftime lead, and they never let up. Kansas State was able to make a run to cut it to about 12 points, and it looked like they were making a little bit of a run. But boy, I mean, I'll tell you what, Loyola Chicago once again took off. Ran away with it. They won 78-62. There was no doubt who was going to the Final Four here. I was really rooting for Loyola, hoping they would get there. Now they have to take on Michigan in the Final Four. I'm a little torn, but not that much torn, because obviously I've been a Michigan fan my whole life. I've been rooting for Loyola this tournament, so obviously I'm going to be rooting for Michigan in this tournament. But with the way things are going in this tournament for Loyola, can they continue their streak? I mean, they're a good team. They're a very, very good team coming into this. They were a very good team coming into the tournament, and they are proving to be a very good team. Ben Richardson led the way for Loyola Chicago with 23 points, career high for him, by the way. And they showed his points. I believe he had 0 points against Miami, and here he is 23 in this game against Kansas State. So all these guys on Loyola, I mean, all of them can score at different times. All of them can be the hero at different times. This team shares the ball very, very well. It doesn't matter who's doing the scoring. They play as a team. And that's just like how Michigan is. It doesn't matter really who's doing the scoring. Michigan plays as a team as well. Both teams are very good defensively. Both teams can shoot the three. It should be an amazing game come this Saturday. And then in the games on Sunday, Villanova, they defeated Texas Tech 71-59, so they moved to the Final Four, a 1 seed. And Duke, they lose in overtime to Kansas, 85-81. So Kansas, I believe Kansas had the absolute toughest road to get to the Final Four out of any of these 4 teams. I mean, yeah, you could say Loyola as an 11 seed. Well, wait a minute, they had a tough time. I mean, they're an 11 seed. They were the underdog in every game. But I mean, if you think about it, they defeated a 6 seed and a 3 seed. So yes, they did play the highest seeds possible in those 2 games. But I mean, they could have ended up facing a 2 and a 1 as well, but they didn't. They faced a 7 and a 9. So it kind of got a little easier for them as they went along in the tournament, seed-wise. Whereas Michigan, they faced a 14, a 6 seed, and then they faced a 7 seed and a 9 seed. Villanova, they faced a 16 seed. I'm trying to remember who it was. An 8. They faced a 9 seed. Alabama was a 9 seed. They faced a 9 seed. Then they faced a 5 seed, and they faced a 3 seed. Kansas, they faced a 16 seed in Penn, which was probably the best 16 seed of all time coming in. But I mean, UMBC disproved that when they ended up winning, really. But stats-wise, I think coming in Penn was the best 16 seed, and they did give Kansas some trouble. Seton Hall, as an 8 seed, gave Kansas some trouble, and then Kansas had to play number 5 seed Clemson, who they only beat by 4, and then they had to play 2 seed Duke, who they only beat by 4. So Kansas is pretty much battle-tested coming into the Final Four here. So you got 2 1 seeds, a 3 seed, and an 11 seed facing off in the Final Four. So both games on Saturday will be broadcast on TBS. Loyola Chicago and Michigan will take place at 6:09, whereas Kansas will play Villanova at 8:49. That's the approximate start time. It will depend on when the Michigan Loyola game ends. Basically, college games take about 2 hours, so you're talking about 40 minutes time there. So if it does not end right away at 8:09, maybe look for it more around 9 o'clock start time for Michigan or for Kansas and Villanova. Villanova is a 5-point favorite. Michigan is a 5-point favorite as well coming into the game. Loyola Chicago is 32-5. Michigan 32-7, which is a record for them for wins in the season. Kansas 31-7. Villanova 34-4. So all these teams have very good records heading into the Final Four. And you got to throw out the seeds at this point. I mean, you've got 4 very good teams in the Final Four here. Loyola Chicago hasn't been in the Final Four since they won the championship back in 1963. And they're looking like they could just do this again. Like I said, will I be mad if Michigan loses? Absolutely. I'd be upset if they lost. But would I be that upset if they lost to Loyola, a team that has had such a Cinderella run in this tournament? No, because obviously I would root for whoever wins this game. Obviously, I'm going to be rooting for in the championship game. Whether that's my team from the state I'm from, Michigan, And I've been a Michigan fan my entire life, or whether that will be Loyola, the team I've picked up in this tournament that I've really been rooting for. And I think a lot of the nation's been rooting for too. So my team, Michigan, has to play the villain in this game and take down Sister Jean and the Loyola Ramblers. And and by the way, speaking of this game, Jalen Rose's grandmother, who by the way is 100 years old, said, "Sorry, Sister Jean, it's time for your end to run," or something along those lines. But so boy, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's not like it's gonna matter. I think in the end, talking back and forth, talking smack like that. But basically, for these two teams, it's all gonna come down to defense and 3-pointers, in my opinion. And whichever team can force more turnover. Michigan can force a lot of turnovers, but so can Loyola. And Michigan and Loyola both can hit threes. They both can play good defense. I think you're going to get a game maybe in the 60s for the scoring wise. I'm going to say, boy, it's hard to pick against Loyola the way they played in this tournament. And I mean, they've taken down a 3 seed already in Tennessee in this tournament. But boy, Michigan has just been red hot. I mean, both these teams have the first and second, longest winning streaks in the NCAA tournament right now. So it's in college basketball, I should say. So it's hard to pick against either of them. I think Michigan's won 13 in a row. Loyola's won 14 in a row, or either it's 13 and 12, one of those two. So it's hard to pick against either of them. But with Michigan, I can't go against my home team. I'm gonna pick them. It's gonna be a close one. I'm gonna say Michigan wins it 66-63 over Loyola. Now, if it comes down to free throws at the end of this game, you could easily see where Michigan might end up losing this. I thought it was going to cost them against Florida State, and it could very well cost them in this game, but we will see. Kansas-Villanova, that game, this one's going to have a lot of star power. I mean, Villanova's given actually a 72% chance to win this game over Kansas. Michigan's given a 73% chance to win over Loyola. So you got Graham for Kansas. You got Azubuike. You've got Brunson. You got Spellman for Villanova, those two. Villanova's, averaging 86.6 points a game, giving up only 64. So their defense is a little bit better than Kansas because Kansas is giving up 74 points a game. So, I mean, and the rebounds, they're both getting about 35 a game, 16 assists, 4 blocks, 6 steals. You're talking almost identical stats here for either team. So that's just wow, really kind of crazy if, you ask me. I mean, it seems like that is like really crazy. But with it being, with that being said, I'm going to go Villanova here. I mean, they were to the championship game a couple of years ago. They've still got players on the team and that have championship caliber to them. Jay Wright's been here. So is Bill Self, though. But it's been a while for Bill Self. And I'm just going to go with Villanova and their more experience. I know the Big 12 has been very good this year in basketball, but I've got to go with Villanova. I mean, they've been really, almost the favorite, you would almost say, coming into the tournament to win this thing. Yeah, you could say Virginia was too, but, I mean, they got knocked out first round, so that, I think, shifted it easily to Villanova at that point, being the favorite to win this whole thing. So with just the more experience with Villanova, and I think Brunson's going to have a big game, and I think they're going to be able to shut down Kansas a little bit, but not too much. But I think Villanova wins it. I think the final score, it's going to be a high-scoring game, I feel like. I think Villanova ends up winning this one 85 to 78 over Kansas, point spread like that. Let's just talk about some of the leaders for Loyola Chicago as well. Clayton Custer, he leads the way, 13.2 points a game for Loyola. Ingram leads the way at rebounding with 5.8 a game. And Custer has 4.2 assists a game. Where Wagner for Michigan, 14.3 points a game for him, 6.9 rebounds, and Simpson has 3.7 assists per game. Loyola has won 14 in a row. Michigan has won 13 in a row. So Loyola is scoring 72 points a game. Michigan 74. Michigan's given up 59. Loyola 63. So see what I mean right there? I mean, look at rebounding. 33 to 32. Michigan holds the edge. Loyola holds the edge in assists, 15 to 14. 3 blocks to 2 blocks for Michigan over Loyola. Both are getting about 6 steals per game. So once again, a pretty even matchup, I would say, for this game. And like I said, I think Michigan wins at 66-63. But like I said, I would not be surprised if Loyola wins this game. And then, you know, you're going to have to take down either team's going to have to take down Villanova or Kansas, who right now I think a lot of people are thinking the winner of that game wins the national championship game, which, like I said, we'll do a preview of the championship game next week once the championship game is set. But let's talk about Loyola Chicago for a little bit here on their run to the Final Four. It kind of reminded me of the run that really George Mason made back in 2005 when they beat Michigan State, North Carolina, Wichita State, and UConn to reach the Final Four. Now, granted, their run, they had to play a lot of high seeds. They beat 6-seeded Michigan State, 3-seed North Carolina, but they did the exact same thing in the Sweet 16. They had to play a 7-seed, just like Loyola. They had to play a 7-seed, just like Loyola, which was Wichita State. Then they had to put, but the only difference is they had to play number 1-seeded UConn, whereas Loyola had to face number 9-seeded Kansas State. But how ironic is it? Jim Larinaga was the coach of George Mason that took his team to the Final Four in 2005 as an 11th seed. He's now the coach of Miami, gets knocked out by Loyola Chicago in the first round, who is an 11th seed that has made it to the Final Four. Kind of a strange coincidence there, wouldn't you say? And then they took out a 3 seed, took out a 7 seed, and the only difference is they played a 9 seed instead of a 1 seed in the regional final. So now we'll see what happens in the national championship game, or in the, not national championship game, the national semifinal. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great weekend for college basketball. 3-11 versus 2-1 seeds. I mean, geez, it's been such a great March Madness. I look forward to it. Whatever the outcome is for either game. I mean, yes, I'm obviously going to be rooting for Michigan, so I'll be a little disappointed if they lose. But I'm not going to obviously throw something through my TV like you might see some other fans do. So what do you think? Who do you think is going to win the Final Four? Post any comments in the comment section below. Drop a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it. And I want to thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. If you have subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more content. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Links are in the description below. Until next time, this is Michael out and over and out. Mikey's true. You guys are the best. Take care.